everyone. I'm Jade Begay. This is Sean Sherman, and we're at Sundance Film Festival. It is, what is the date actually? January
24th, I think.
24th. And as we all know, there is a lot of really aggressive, intense activity happening in Minnesota and Minneapolis in particular. Sean is a Minneapolis local. You have a restaurant, a James Beard winning restaurant in Minneapolis, and I just want to name it. It's kind of weird to be at Sundance, which is there's a lot of glitz and glam happening here, and at the same time we're really feeling heavy about what's going on out there. So I just wanted to first ask, how are you feeling? How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, that's a big question. We got in on Thursday, and Friday was a day to just kind of stand in solidarity. So thousands of people marched in the streets in Minneapolis yesterday, and there was wonderful pictures of just the entire city just filled to the brim with people marching in 20 below weather, and that felt so good and so empowering. And so many of the businesses in Minnesota shut down just to be able to voice, get ice out of Minnesota, right? And so our staff was out there protesting with everybody, and we were feeling good. And then this morning when we wake up to new news that there was another murder happening and right there in broad daylight on the streets in Minneapolis, just a few blocks from our kitchen. And we've just been through this a few weeks ago, when Renee Good was murdered, again, just a few blocks from our kitchen in South Minneapolis from the Indigenous Food Lab. And that threw everything into a tailspin, and now we don't even know what's going to happen. So it feels, I'm glad I'm heading back home tomorrow, but we don't even know what life is like day to day there. We just know that the safety of our staff and our community is our highest priority. We're plugged in to make sure that we can get food support, pantry items out there to people, that we're giving rides to people. We're connected with tons of people across the city that are just trying to support, an entire underground network just kind of formed because we didn't have a choice, because there's nobody to save us. We can't rely on our city, we can't rely on our police force, we can't rely on our state. And we obviously can't rely on our government because they're the ones doing it to us. And so it really became down to how did Minneapolis just come together to protect itself. And every day we wake up and have to assess, just like we did this morning. And so it feels awful to not be there right at this moment, but we have a really strong team. We're doing a lot of really good work. We're hoping to be a really big support and just continue to do that to keep our employees safe and just play our role in this whole situation.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And I also just want to ask, why do you think this is happening? I mean, I think, there's politics, but why Minneapolis? Why Minnesota? Why is this happening there as a resident and as somebody who has a small business and social entrepreneurship endeavors going on there? Why is this happening there?
Well, I mean, we can speculate, but we can put some pretty good guesses, We know that Trump is a really delicate ego and a really fragile ego, and that he's taking it out on people that he just doesn't like, And so he obviously really, really doesn't like Governor Walz. He obviously really, really doesn't like Ilhan Omar, which are very important figureheads in Minnesota and Minneapolis. So I think having those two is a prime target. And Minneapolis also has just never voted for Trump, because we have a lot of smart people there. And we've done a really good job of holding that front for a long time. And I also think that Minneapolis is, where George Floyd happened. And again, when George Floyd was murdered, it just sparked a national, a global situation. There was George Floyd marches across the globe. And I think that this administration really feels that Minneapolis could be what they want, which is they want this to turn into that again. They want to see chaos, destruction, and happen because they want to swoop in to say, anybody who's opposing us is a dangerous domestic terrorist. And we can see them out there on the streets, face scanning people, taking pictures of people, and they're building a database against us. So if they get their way, they can just turn around and say we're all Antifa, And so I think that it's important to know that this is really petty. It's completely unnecessary, And like they've had these plans in the works for a while, and they know that their power was waning because they're scared of what's on the Epstein list, because they know what's in the Epstein list, you know, and they're doing everything they can to distract from that. They know that they're not going to win this midterm election, so they're going to do everything they can to enact an insurrection act, to take over elections, to, you know, to claim that there's all this fraud happening everywhere, because they know they can't win, you know, but we're a people's movement. We always have been, and we're bigger than them. And you know, that's the hope through is seeing everybody that showed up on the streets yesterday, even if it was 20 below zero, and knowing that these situations always topple with people's movements. And like Minneapolis isn't going to bend. We're not taking the bait right now. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but as so far we have not taken the bait. But if they decide to move on from Minneapolis, they're going to go to another city. And they're going to try their luck there to try to see if they can start that chaos that they need to be able to kind of take over the country, you know? Yeah. And so this is a really crucial time for everybody.
I was having a conversation with someone from that state, actually the most recent guest on my podcast, Hope Walls, and we were talking about the same thing. You know, why is this happening there? Obviously, there's the political vendettas, the pettiness of that, but to swoop up an entire population into that chaos it's unethical. It's a waste of resources that should be going to residents, to making, you know, our streets safer.
It's a minimum of $1.5 million a day for ICE to be there, minimum, you know.
Minimum. Yeah. So I just think it is an interesting thing that they're targeting these places that do actually work for their local state governments, that work for their citizens. Minnesota has one of the best local state governments where residents are prioritized and they're taken care of. You all have a great track record around education, you know, the food systems in schools, etc. I come from a state that's also fairly progressive and does well in those departments too, you know, taking care of those who are most vulnerable and protecting them, making them, you know, making it so that they have access to education, food, like the basics. And so I think it's those kinds of progressive values and practices that are a threat to this administration. And
absolutely.
As someone who comes from a state that also is, you know, a good state and does good things for the people that live there, I just feel a lot of solidarity, but also a lot of like, oh, we need to be watching very closely. We need to be watching what's happening to Minnesota very closely, because that could happen to us. And so, I'm with you and with all the friends and people that I know in Minnesota and Minneapolis. I know you're getting bombarded with this question, but what can we support in this moment? I know your organization is working on, you know, a list or a database of groups to support, but in this moment, or do you want to talk about that? And how can we continue to support folks on the ground? Yeah,
we'll put some of those lists out on social media. NÄTIFS, my nonprofit, just released that list. So we have some links for people to go to support, because there is some people really helping to hold all of this up, to hold this resistance up. A lot of legal support, a lot of food relief support, a lot of advice, and just a lot of safety going on. And so I people should be supporting a lot of these groups right now, because we need that, you know, because we feel like we're a little bit cut off from the world. And I know that's intentional, but we're doing it no matter what. And we're using the resources that we have, which we've built a lot of resources. And I feel really good where we are with the new building that we built called Woyite Tipi. And we're building this massive kitchen so we can just do massive food relief, as we know it's going to be needed out there, because they're weaponizing food. You know, they're cutting away SNAP and USDA benefits just to punish us for no good reason at all. You know, and like, there's going to be so much. People are afraid to go to the fucking grocery store, you know? And so
they already are.
And so we just, you know, we need that support. We need people to have all eyes on Minneapolis, because nobody is safe, you know, at all.
Yeah. And I think that's a great note to end on, since we're here at Sundance. You know, the streets are full of storytellers, filmmakers, reporters, journalists, investors in media. And I think we just need to hear from Park City, Utah, as storytellers, just be in solidarity with all the observers and reporters on the ground there, invest in independent media, support the people who are risking their safety and lives. It is now life risking to go out and document. So we need our photographers, our journalists to be protected, to be invested in, and just let's double down in documenting the truth and amplifying the truth. And thank you, Sean, so much.
Thank you.